Hey everybody, I am back today to talk about, the lesson I'm learning late last night and into this morning. I actually don't even remember where I saw it, but I saw an image, it's probably when I was flipping around on Pinterest or something, and it really jumped out at me about how we cause ourselves this additional stress. So, yes, the whole theme is about self abuse and the trauma that causes internally into our physical bodies. And so, I started thinking about this. It was about that basically excessive availability and how I am stressed out. I've been stressed out. That's nothing new for anybody that knows me personally. My brain hurts most of the time because of one, the amount of work that I put into what I do. Also, the type of work I do is very cerebral, very brain heavy, not just strategic, but sometimes very tactical, and it can be very taxing. And if you're building that off of decades of trauma, which if you've listened to the other episodes, you're getting an idea where some of that comes from, but really looking at the self-abuse components. And so I discovered a root today based off of this discussion about how I've been putting and adding to the stress in my physical body through excessive availability. So I sat down this morning to journal, and this is what I did. I started sketching. And so I really started with this idea of, okay, excessive availability. What does that look like for me? Where am I putting my energy into this that shouldn't be in unhealthy ways? And, the very first thing was I'm always on and open. And it's the candle burning at both ends, right? I don't have to always be on and open. We're not designed to always be on and open. It's led to burnout. It's led to having no consistent breaks, which equals no peace, no stillness, no quiet, no safe place for me to anchor it. There's not a safe harbor for me to anchor in. It looks like giving up control of myself in the sense of I facilitate everybody else's needs over mine. So I facilitate it being okay for somebody else's timeline and somebody else's schedule to supersede mine. It's demands on my time, which adds stress because I put everybody else's priorities over mine when we're talking about excessive availability. It's that hurried upness, it's the busyness, it's the Bank of Jen basically having a sign on it that just says, "Come in and rob me of my personal currency, my time, my money, my talents." The abundance of Jen. While all of us are rich with abundance, this is really coming down to some deep roots in so when I go to look at stress and I'm looking at where are my deep roots coming from, obviously all roots will pull you back to fear. Everything's fear motivated because if you're not in a frequency of love, you're sitting in a frequency of fear. It just manifests itself in a myriad of symptoms and descriptions you could put on that, but the core root for everything goes back to fear. So obviously I get there by saying, okay, I'm fear motivated in excess availability. I feel like this is a good time to pause for a second before we go to what those roots express themselves as, like what I was able to find what they're connected to in my personal self. But I think it's just important to say when we're talking about these things or when I'm talking about it, I'm working on a very different level. I've worked through the majority of traumas where this come from, but now I'm looking in my physical body to see where it is stored, and this is where I'm finding the roots still lingering, holding little places within myself. And this is also not about whether or not we should serve people or not, because we absolutely serve others, but if this is about the lack of self-care, the lack of self-love, which is creating patterns of self-abuse by not actually loving myself. So this is really this whole journey of like the next level of learning to love self. Okay. So gosh, I looked at that for a minute and I said, yep, that all feels right. Is my excess availability becoming self-abuse? Answer is absolutely yes. It's a pattern that's been there for a very long time. And even as I'm talking about this right now, I can actually see where some of this is learned behavior. This is a learned behavior from my dad, 100%. This is definitely a learned behavior to see and witness how I saw him serving people, in the way that I grew up and how he served others, and even how he is to today, even retired, is there's no wait. If somebody is asked for something, you have to reply immediately because, they're waiting on you. But that's where this broken perception is, right? And this thing that it goes back to basically the self-manipulation and lack of self-love, which is what we're calling in this journey self-abuse. So I stepped in and I said, okay, next page, my fears, what do they look like? And so I identified several key things that for me, and yours are going to look different. For me, the reason I respond to so quickly, or even when I'm trying to take a break or a nap, I immediately respond to people, or I give people access, even after I put boundaries up and say, I need this time, I need you to respect it. I still find like little gates that I open for people to keep coming in. And so even though I've continued to improve on it, this is what this 26 days is teaching me, is where I have cracks in my energy, cracks in my boundaries, and roots that are coming out in this physical body. So I've always responded because of fear that somebody else is going to get there first, which equates going back to lack and scarcity mindsets. That's not living abundantly. That's not knowing that I am already abundance. That's what's for me will be for me, and what's for somebody else will be for somebody else, because there's more than enough to go around of anything that you fill in the blank. There's more than enough to go around. I identified that I need people to see me, which goes back to some of my abandonment roots, that sense of need for belonging and acceptance. I've had an extensive history, and I honestly, I still encounter this every single day. I only really know 1 to 2 people, that maybe 3, that actually see me and hear me and understand me, all of me, raw, vulnerable, transparent, and they get it. They can get the whole package of me. And because of, general terms of loneliness that I've hinted at, there's different threads to that. Because man, I love being alone. Do not get me wrong. I love the quiet. I love being alone. This loneliness ties more back to people that actually get you and understand you when you're talking, when you're sharing, having somebody to actually, share with on a daily basis. And so there is such a craving in me for people to see me that was still showing up. That's creating stress in me. So that is a dis-ease. Okay. I found another item, which was just the desire for recognition and acknowledgement, which again is going back to the need for acceptance, being seen and heard, and a desire, not a need, but a desire to feel honored for the journey I've taken. And really that's, that goes back to an ego level response, because it's fear-based. Ego is going to be a fear-based part of yourself. And that's the part that's just been, again, goes back to a deep need to be seen, for people to see I want people at some point to see the level of 7 hells that I've had to go through, if you will, to survive and to be where I am today. But none of that actually matters, because that's my journey, and it is in the past, and I've neutralized those critical events. So it really, at the moment, is still kind of this open gate that I look at each of these things, talking about in my boundaries, is still an open gate that I need to continue to put love to. And then the other desire or excuse that I make for myself is I just want to help others, which is still tying back to, God, I've been doing work on my codependency for a decade, and I still find little tiny pieces here and there. And so definitely ties to that. It's again, I've got gates in my boundaries. I've put good boundaries in place, but yet I have these gates that I still open. They are the cracks. They're the cracks in my boundaries for things and people, for me to allow them to come through. And then, I wrote down savior complex, and I don't really know if it's that or not. It's just kind of the phrasing that came to me. It's a desire to really want to be able to step in and be the person that helps somebody else out. And then ultimately just goes back to lack of self-care first, putting other people's needs and priorities above my own, and in a way that is unhealthy. Being a compassionate, empathetic person who acts with kindness and serves others is deeply at the core of who I am. But it's a lack of balance that has created the problem that I have right now. Right? It's definitely a struggle around that. So I think we just have to be aware that this is really, again, an external situation of trying to find the love in an external place versus the love in an internal place. And lack of fill in the blank again is just driving that root fear. The problem is spending all of my time, my energy, and not receiving in return, when we're talking about excess availability, right, that's out of balance. So that's not me receiving, it's me giving. And it just leaves me feeling dry and barren and dusty and like I don't have what I need. And when you feel like you don't have what you need, what happens then is you go back into that state of survival. Just spending your time on the tightrope of survival, just kind of strapped in and strapped on. And for decades, I think this is definitely where I've been. I've been on the tightrope. And this is one of the coping mechanisms of survival for me is reaching out through excess availability. The fact of the matter, guys, is self-care isn't selfish. And it is an internal situation. My abundance, my everything is internal. And that's where I need to stay focused and finding my joy and finding my healing and finding, what actually needs for thriving instead of the state of surviving. And I feel like, I think this has actually been a great awareness time for me this morning when I did my journaling, and really striving now to, when we come across something within ourselves that isn't working, that's out of balance, that is that shadow part or, a root issue, that the thing that we do is we sit with it, we honor it. Once we've acknowledged it, we need to honor it. We need to send it love and compassion of the highest order to fill what that needs. And the more that we're able to sit and honor those parts of ourselves and sending more divine love to it, we then are able to transmute that space and fill it back with light. And I think now that I know now that I've had this measure of awareness, I know now I will be able to, be this place of beauty, of love, of nourishment, of flowing water, of everything that I need, of that abundance for myself and for other people, because I'm going to be putting it into balance. And so now that we have discovered and found this part of stress trauma inside of me, I'm really excited to get it out and send a lot of love to it and spend some time transmuting it over the next few days. So if you guys are struggling with stress, like I've been struggling with stress and trying to figure out where yours is coming from, start the inner dialogue, start identifying where you have cracks in your energy, cracks in your boundaries, cracks in, where is your imbalance at? Find it so that you can send it love and send it light, and to heal that part of yourself and to move it from survival to thriving. Definitely leave me some comments on how you're managing stress or how you feel stress, or if this, discussion was even relatable in any way. Certainly want to hear about it. So leave some comments.